All right, this is Human Development, Section D lecture. Our prioritized standards are for C, D, E, F, and G. And objectively, we're going to analyze the various stages of social development. Now, socialization is a lifelong process of shaping an individual's behavior patterns, values, standards, skills, attitudes, and motives to conform to those regarded as desirable in a particular society. Ideally, social development begins with the establishment of a close emotional relationship between a child and a parent figure in a process that's known as attachment. Now, attachment, this means the enduring social emotional relationship between a child and a parent or other type of caregiver. For instance, when an infant wants to get close to an attachment figure, they're going to emit signals like smiling, crying, vocalizing to promote a responsive behavior by the parent. Sometimes attachment is going to be referred to as simply bonding. Now, psychologist John Bowlby first formulated the attachment theory, which suggests that infants desire an attachment to a parental figure in stressful situations. Building off Bowlby's attachment theory, developmental psychologist Mary Ainsworth conducted a study where young children were put into a strange situation where they were separated from their mother by a barrier or put in a place alone, some type of unfamiliar room. So just something that was a strange situation. So the child's responses to the strange situation fell into two main categories, reflecting either secure attachment or insecure attachment. Now, securely attached children felt close to their mothers, safe, and more willing to explore or tolerate the situation. Insecurely attached children were more likely to react to the situation with anxiety and ambivalence or with avoidance. Now, anxious, ambivalent children wanted contact, but they cried with fear and anger when they were separated, and it was also difficult to console them when they were reunited. The avoidant children acted unconcerned about being separated from their mother, which seems a little terrifying, not crying when they were separated, and also not seeking contact when they were reunited. Now, attachment problems are going to be good predictors of later problems with social relationships, but many actually succeed in overcoming attachment difficulties. A person's social development is also impacted by their temperament, which is an individual's characteristic manner of behavior or reaction that is assumed to have a strong genetic basis. But experiences and parenting styles can actually modify the way that temperament expresses itself in children. So research has shown that there's going to be a certain percentage of infants, somewhere between 10 to 15%, that are going to be born either shy or born more bold. Now, Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky theorized that children learn through hands-on experiences and social interactions with members of their culture. Vygotsky claimed that timely and sensitive interventions by adults could help children learn new tasks when a child is on the edge of learning a new task, which he called the zone of proximal development. So the zone of proximal development, this is the difference between what a child can do with help and what a child can do without any help or guidance. So just what you can do by yourself is going to be more limited, what you can't do, but when you do have guidance, it can kind of expand that zone of what you are capable of doing. Psychologists have investigated different parenting styles and their impact on children's personalities and social behaviors, which have led developmental psychologists to identify four distinct parenting styles, which include authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and uninvolved. Authoritarian parenting demands conformity and obedience, and they tolerate little discussion of rules, which are enforced through punishments or threats of punishments. Now, authoritative parenting, these have high expectations for their children that are going to be enforced through consequences, so kind of sounds more authoritarian, yet these standards are combined with warmth and respect for the child's views. So authoritative parents usually place a heavy emphasis on reasoning and then explaining in order to help their children learn to anticipate the consequences of their behavior. Now, permissive parenting, They set few rules and allow the children to pretty much make their own decisions. Permissive parents are caring and they communicate with their children, kind of like the authoritative parents, but they also give most decision making responsibilities to their children. They may believe that children can learn better from consequences on their own actions than from following rules that were set by the parents. And you can also have uninvolved parenting, which you can probably discern by the name, but this tends to be either indifferent or possibly even rejecting, sometimes to the point of neglect or abuse. Parents in this group often lead such stress filled lives that they actually have little time or energy for their children. Now, these parenting styles seem to have an impact on a child's personality and behavior. Children with authoritarian parents tend to be anxious and insecure. Children with authoritative parents tend to be confident, self reliant, and enthusiastic. Overall, they're going to be happier and less troublesome than the other types, and also more successful as their parents have taken a more involved, interactive role in that child's life. Now, children with permissive or uninvolved parents are typically less mature, they're more impulsive, they're more dependent, and also more demanding. Now, especially during adolescence, social development is marked by less influence from family and increased influence from outside sources. In American society, the adolescent encounters new values and receives less structure and adult guidance, as there is a strong need for peer acceptance. Now, adolescents may spend more than four times as much as four times more talking to peers as they do their parents. With their peers, adolescents refine their social skills and they try out different social behaviors. At this age, problems of loneliness, depression, and shyness can become significant during adolescence. The intensity of a young person's social and personal motives can make it difficult to keep perspective and recognize that difficult times will pass and that everyone makes mistakes. These factors could explain the sharp increase in suicide among teenagers. A triggering experience for such a tragedy is often something like a shaming or humiliating event, like potentially a romantic rejection. During adolescence, they are likely to have conflicts with parents, experience extremes in mood, and engage in risky behaviors. Adolescents from authoritative parents are going to have the least trouble with this period, yet those with the most difficulty are going to come from permissive or authoritarian parents. Now, the development of a sexual identity, including the development of a sexual orientation and sexual behaviors, does become more important task of adolescence. Now, while people talk about adolescents, only a small proportion of teens and young adults, about 6%, are at high risk for crime. Most of those that commit crime are in the 15 to 25 year range, and they're also males. Yet about half of all crimes are actually going to be committed by this group. Now, family structure seems to be one of the single strongest predictors of delinquency. More than two-thirds of delinquent males come from single-parent families, and teenage pregnancies disproportionately come from single-parent families, almost always involving a mother but no father. Now, in many cultures, the end of adolescence is marked by various rites of passage, which are social rituals that mark the transition between developmental stages, especially between adulthood and childhood. Rites of passage usually take place about puberty and serve as a public acknowledgement of the transition into adulthood. In the U.S., common rites of passage includes things like receiving a driver's license and graduating from high school, which are going to provide young adults with an added measure of freedom and independence that's unavailable to children. Psychoanalyst Erik Erikson developed a theory of psychosocial development where he saw human development as a sequence of psychosocial stages that were defined by common problems emerging throughout life, from infancy to old age. Erikson's psychosocial stages refer to what he believed were the 8 major challenges that appear successively throughout the lifespan. Now, these psychosocial stages require an individual to rethink their goals and relationships with others. Now, when people face these challenges, they make choices that influence the growth of their personalities. Not successfully overcoming the principal challenge of a psychosocial stage will make them unprepared for the next stage. So, from birth to about age 18, to about 18 months old, the principal challenge is trust versus mistrust, where you need to develop a basic sense of trust in your environment and in those who care for you. So this trust naturally occurs with a strong attachment with a caregiver who provides food, warmth, and comfort, and other types of physical closeness. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in a basic sense of safety and security, with the ability to rely on forces outside of oneself. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in insecurity and anxiety. So inconsistent parenting, lack of physical closeness and warmth, or a frequent absence of a caring adult may produce a lasting sense of mistrust, insecurity, or potentially anxiety. From about 18 months to 3 years of age, the principal challenge is autonomy versus self-doubt, where you need to gain greater independence or autonomy with new skills in walking, talking, and expanded interaction with objects and people. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in the perception of self as an agent capable of controlling one's own body and making things happen. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in feelings of inadequacy about self-control or control of events. So if there's too much restriction or criticism at the stage, it can lead many to have self-doubt. From about 3 to about age 6, the principal challenge is initiative versus guilt, where you hope to comfortably initiate From about 3 to about age 6, the principal challenge is initiative versus guilt, where you hope to comfortably initiate intellectual and motor skills. So, hoping to choose what to wear, also what to eat. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in confidence in oneself as being able to initiate and create, essentially making your own decisions. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in a feeling of a lack of self-worth. So, over controlling adults demanding an impossible degree of self-control can actually result in a child feeling inadequate or possibly guilty. From about age 6 to puberty, the principal challenge is competence versus inferiority, where you hope to develop your skills and competencies in a more systematic manner. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in adequacy in basic social and intellectual skills with acceptance by peers. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in a lack of self-confidence and feelings of failure. During adolescence, the principal challenge is identity versus role confusion, where you discover your true identity amid the confusion of playing many different roles for different audiences in an expanding social world. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in a comfortable sense of self as a person, both being unique and socially accepted. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in a sense of self as fragmented, shifting, and with an unclear sense of self. During early adulthood, the principal challenge is intimacy versus isolation, where you develop close, intimate, and fully committed relationships. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in a capacity for closeness and commitment to another person. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in feelings of aloneness, loneliness, and separation, with a denial of intimacy needs. So, results if unable to resolve the fears of vulnerability and risk associated with closeness. Like failing to make intimate commitments, requiring compromising personal preferences, accepting responsibilities, yielding some privacy and independence are all possible for causing the inadequate resolution. During middle adulthood, the principal challenge is generativity versus stagnation, where you make commitments beyond oneself to family, work, society, or even future generations. So this is broadening their focus beyond just oneself and that of a partner. So going beyond just that. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in a focus of concern beyond oneself to family, society, and future generations. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in self-indulgent concerns with lack of future orientation. So if someone has not resolved earlier crises of identity and intimacy, then they may experience a midlife crisis during this point. The last one, during late adulthood, the principal challenge is ego integrity versus despair, where you ideally gain the ability to look back on life without regrets and enjoy a sense of wholeness, known as ego integrity. An adequate resolution of this challenge results in a sense of wholeness with basic satisfaction with life. An inadequate resolution of this challenge results in feelings of futility and disappointment. So they have to do with feelings of aspirations that might have been unfulfilled, as for instance. All right, that concludes Human Development Section D lecture. Our prioritized standards again were 4C, D, E, F, and G. And objectively now I can analyze the various stages of social development.